I think clearly there needs to be articulated very high standards when you talk about reading. What does reading really mean? Reading at what level and when? And make sure that that doesn't change every year based on how kids perform. Right now, the standards are whatever we want. The standards are high. The performance metrics that we gauge your success or failure to standards changes. So we've had high standards. SATs has had standards for years. Advanced placement has standards for years. NAEPS has had standards since 1969. Private schools have standards. But states decide their standards can go up and down. We have to say to this superintendent and to the school board that you need to have one very high standard for communication skills to include reading and writing and listening, and very high standards for math computations in terms of basic math skills, geometry, higher order skill level. Have one standard and say to this community, here's our standard for all children. Like tying your shoes for all children, whether you're rich or you're poor. Tying your shoes, not some Velcro for this crowd over here and say that's a good job, the shoe's tied, keep walking. But have tying your shoes as a high standard for all kids, and then hold everybody accountable to achieve that standard, no matter what you have to do to allocate and reallocate and shift resources around to make that happen. I think we harm ourselves. I think the public loses confidence in public education when you're continually making progress but nobody can read over decades at the level that they're supposed to be able to read at. Just draw a line. No Child Left Behind, despite all of its problems, had a big bright line. All kids will be able to read proficiently and do math proficiently by 2014. And they gave that back to the states. And the states, took 10 years to decide, well, okay, that's unrealistic. We can't do that. Well, when can we teach all kids to read and do math? Does it take 20 years? Does it take 30 years? Does it take a lifetime? Heck no. Absolutely not. I used to say there are two kinds of kids out there. There are 4-cylinder kids and 8-cylinder kids. 4-cylinder kids are those kids that really have some physiological issues and some really medical issues that will make it difficult for them to proceed on a certain track, But we want the very best for those kids. There's some 8-cylinder kids out there. And some of the 8-cylinder kids that get great opportunities, who happen to have great, lots of resources, those kids just do very, very well. There's another group of 8-cylinder kids out there that's kind of struggling, okay, because of a lack of support. They're maybe going to the wrong school or didn't get the kind of support they needed along the way. They're still 8-cylinder kids, okay? These are the same kids that can take an iPod, an iPhone, or one of these electronic games, take it apart, put it back there. But on the conventional education side, they're struggling. But it's still an 8-cylinder kid. I used to always say, this is an 8-cylinder kid whose 4 cylinders are still kind of rusty and we haven't been able to do what we need to do with those other 4 cylinders. We have the capacity to educate at a very high level all 8-cylinder kids, okay? And that's most of our kids. We can do that. NASA has already demonstrated their capacity to teach a chimpanzee a language, how to communicate, and a chimpanzee how to count. If we have the technological capacity, motivation, spirit, and goal to do that for a chimpanzee, we ought to be able to do that for any 8-cylinder kid, and for some 4-cylinder kids who have some real challenges. So I think we have the ability to do more for children. I think our expectations are not where they should be.